Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Shirley Bostock is a daughter of Holocaust parents, which has shaped her life and work in many ways. She's been able to pick up spirits since she was 6 years old, and at the age of 8, she knew she had full-blown psychic powers and abilities, which allowed her to provide intuitive readings, medium readings, and what she refers to as the number 8 DNA activations. She's been a certified matrix energetics practitioner for 5 years. She's been doing readings for 20 and is both clairvoyant and clairaudient. Shirley works with intuitive information, past lives, crossovers, subconscious programming, and the understanding of spiritual roots. Her goal is to give each individual the tools to work with their own ascension. Now let's welcome Shirley to the show. Hi, I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, where we co-create powerful, conscious conversations on the leading edge. Today I have Shirley joining us to talk about ending the illusion and what it means to be in the age of divine manifestation. We're also going to be talking about why we act out the patterns of our ancestors and how darkness only lives by permission in the light. Welcome, Shirley.
Hey, Angela, I am so honored to be on this show. Thank you.
I am really honored and excited to have you joining me because I had the opportunity to do some of your work, and it was super, super powerful, your DNA activations, and I'm so excited to share this work with my audience because I know a lot of people will benefit from this conversation today. So let's start with, how the heck did you ever get into the activation work, and what exactly is it?
Well, that's a great question. Angela, I've always had a thing about the numbers, and I've always had a thing about waves and radio waves. In fact, I did a stint as a radio DJ for a little while, and I was so mesmerized by the low waves of the radio. I was like, wow, those are really cool. I think people thought I kind of lost it, but it was very, I was like, why are those like affecting me? So, it was very interesting to actually be on radio and get on the mic and get out there and realize that a broadcast of frequency is something that is very, very powerful. And so it was really great to experience that, even though I was talking to a mic for 8 hours, and it could be a really strange experience because everybody can hear you, but you're alone in this room with a mic.
So yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah, you can relate completely. So it was kind of interesting to realize that one person can affect a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And what finally occurred to me as I started doing more and more metaphysical work, when I was younger, I think I was around 6 years old, I found I could hear spirits and I could sense them. I think my dad was a little mortified by that whole thing, because what would happen is I was bringing home books on ghosts, and I was 6 years old, and the color would just leave his face. He was like, what are you reading? So the gifts started to come in, and I started to notice things. It was a little hard on me as a kid in school because it was like I was 6 places at once. When you're in school and you really need to concentrate on your teacher and on the work, it seemed like I was always having kind of an ADD kind of issue. And I wonder if some of these very gifted children are having the same issue. Very hard to, concentrate. You're in a lot of places at once. But this just kind of continued as I got older, and I realized that there were some gifts that I had. And the intuitive really started to come in. I started doing intuitive readings about 15 years ago. And I got into matrix energetics, which is amazing. It's a no-hold-bar type of way of transformational energy. It's very, very cool. And that's the modality that I use for the activations. So you'll notice that I might be using my hands a lot or, working with the energy. But the nice thing about frequency is you can't own frequency. You can't home it in. It's like trying to own the 582 rate, or copyright it. It just doesn't happen. So the great thing about frequencies, it can come through any modality that you
Mm-hmm.
use. So it can come through shamanism, if you like to stand on your head and yodel, and if that's what you do for healing, then it's going to come right through that. It doesn't matter. You can access it. So, matrix energetics for me is a great way to access the activations and bring them through. And of course, one of the things with matrix, people wobble around a lot. Some people even hit the floor. I've learned to catch people.
Yeah.
So, if, oh yeah, I had one guy fall. I didn't quite get him. He was with the chair. He's on the floor. People are stamping to pick him up. That was wonderful. A matrix liability right there. Luckily, it was at one of the big seminars, so there were plenty of people to come running up and grab him. So that could be really interesting. So you'll see on some of my YouTubes, these people are moving around like this.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of a wobble thing. And what that is the energy is kind of, and the transformational energy, if your DNA is changing, your body structure is changing because the physical body carries the information of our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
We are walking, talking computers, actually. And we hold all kinds of programming that runs every day, through mass consciousness, through our ancestors' consciousness, and we carry those imprints and we run it. This is a lot of our consciousness. A lot of the real ethereal type of consciousness that we all carry, our intelligence, our memories, our psychic abilities, our spiritual, really is held in the emotional bodies and the ethereal and spiritual bodies. And the mental bodies is what processes, but the physical bodies is big walking computer.
Mm-hmm.
Walk, talk, eat, breathe, and and it just runs the type of things it needs to live to survive. It is an amazing part of the whole picture. And the thing is our brain isn't just physical; it really has access through the pineal gland. We can take in many, many different kind of energies and process different energies and integrate them. But we also, whether we believe it's real or not, are highly intuitive people, very, very powerful. And this is why you have kind of mass consciousness type of mindsets, where you
Mm-hmm.
see the one type of thinking that all seems to catch, where hysteria can kind of catch, or everybody's in a great mood till somebody really negative comes in the office and you're like,
Yeah.
just sort of, there goes your bubble. You're like, so we pick up energy from people all the time. And sometimes you really have to check and see if is this my thought. You may be walking down the street and think, "Oh my God, I just got depressed," or you feel a pain somewhere, or you're feeling something going on, and you really need to ask yourself, "Is this mine?" Because
Mm-hmm.
what can happen is you can have a lot of really different things, especially like even in a crowded airplane, you can pick up all kinds of things going on. And then with mass internet, frequencies come through the internet. So
Yeah.
we have to kind of be aware that we're on call processors, and then in our sleep, we're still processing on a higher plane. So it really
Mm-hmm.
never shuts off. So you have to consider then our bodies are running our ancestral um, our ancestral programs at all times.
Yes. So not only do we have our own stuff, but we're also carrying the baggage, as you you might call it, from all of our ancestors. Um, yeah. Well, and you're saying about these thoughts that you have to check in to see if they're yours or someone else's. It's interesting because sometimes I will tune in and I'll be saying, or I hear myself saying kind of a judgmental thing or something that I wouldn't necessarily usually think of. And then I'm like, is that what is that their thought? Because it's kind of so random and it's not, like I said, it's not really a nice thing to think, but it's
Uh,
interesting how that just drops in. Yeah.
I have had the same kind of check. I'm like, I don't think that way. Why the heck did that show up in my mind? And unfortunately, hatred or negativity can have some power. So it's very important that we get out of the illusion and into what I call divine manifestation daily, because what can happen is you can pick up those frequencies and they become a part of your everyday activity. Even the TV can do that. And so we have to figure out where the access is and what we need to do about it. And that was the point of the whole activations. The first thing I was given, if you ever noted a Celtic cross, it's a cross, you get and usually in the middle is a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like this square on the outside, and then there's usually something very pretty, you've got your, the bottom, the top, and the cross on the, what I call negative positive timeline. So the horizontal part is what I'm going to call your timeline. It's the timeline we live in. It's our alternate timelines. It's our past lives, our current lives. This is where we contain all our experience. If you were to take a mirror and look inside a mirror, if you ever did that as a kid and you could see this infinity forever and you're like,
right.
oh, how cool is that? And you're moving it around. Well, it would be real interesting to brush your teeth in that, wouldn't it? Or makeup or brush your hair. Perhaps somebody should try shaving in that. That's look, I'm shaving an infinity, meanwhile, bleeding and it's just not good. So what happens is you have to bring something into one experience. So like today we got one image where we can talk to one another. If I had you an influx of mirror images, it can make things really interesting, but every image has its own modality. So all those images you're seeing inside that mirror exist.
Right. They're like little slices of ourselves in other dimensions.
Exactly. So we call it the collective. But if we're going to take something into experience and bring it into what I call containment, then we're going to need to bring it into one image just so we could exist. So that's what I call this a negative positive timeline of perception. So what we bring into that is what's going to be integrated into our experience. So in the middle, when you get that circle, that's called 0 point energy. That is where all potential ways to become experienced. The 0 sits between the -1 and the 1 in our numerical system. Now, in some numerical systems, there's no 0. They don't count it. So the -1 is still the 1 interactive, but it's a -1, so it's still all potential waiting to become experienced. And with our soul mappings, it really does come out to a point 1111111, which I'll explain in a little. So
as we go like layer by layer, deeper and deeper, because this is like one of those wormholes where it's like you can just go really deep.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You sure can, because experience has no limit,
Well,
So
and I just want to take note, just for a second, to let everybody that's watching and listening know that Shirley is going to be walking us through not one but several different activations, so you can feel and experience what the heck we're talking about. Because it's one thing to try to grasp it with our mind. A lot of things like these concepts are really difficult to understand with our limited brains, but to be able to experience it, that's like where we're going to be able to embody and have that awareness of what it is. So I just wanted to take a pause for that.
Thanks. I've had a lot of deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
Explain some of this. It's like, yeah, I get it.
Well, and even for me, this is like, I definitely have questions of, because my brain wants to know, well, what does that mean? What is how does this happen? So I hope that we can get into those as well.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get into all of it. So now we got something that is ascension, that's kind of on the top, and you've got what I call inversion on the bottom of this Celtic cross. But the square that is housing the circle is what I call God's source. God equals 1. All things must go back into God in order for God to experience God. We're a part of God. We're all experiencing God every day. God equals number 1. And some say that God is really 0 point frequency. That's the divine finger of God. That's the creative finger of God, where we're creating into experience, going into the ethers and bringing in our experience. So what is in ascension is love, anything fluid. It's the ethers, it's creation. We can go up into that ascension and we can create. What's on the bottom is anything that has to do with form. Inversion has to do with the shadows because the shadows only live by permission of the light. You have to have a object in the light to create a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Darkness contracts, so it can't sustain itself. It would just shrink. It just could not sustain itself. So it needs a point of reference in order to live. So when you put this object in the light, that could be anger, fear, anything, that is in kind of a more negative type of containment, that creates a shadow, or sometimes it's just what we need in order to define something that, we're doing. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the form can become very dark in consciousness. The shadow, the more we give a consciousness, the darker it gets. The thing is anything that has consciousness is life force. Consciousness is always moving. It has a torsion. It is spinning, and that's where you also see that circle in the middle of this Celtic cross. You have a torsion in all movement. Even in a line, a straight line, there is movement. It's going forwards or backwards. And then when it connects into the circle, then you've got a spin that is going both ways. The
Mm-hmm.
0 point energy is a vacuum of a spin that goes both directions. This is where we can create, and where some people's negatives become positives and so forth. And a negative doesn't have to be bad. A negative can work in a very positive way, and a positive can work in a negative way. It's like a credit. It's all going back into God's source. So in a sense, it's all going like this, and it's all going like this. So we
Mm-hmm.
often see ascension as rising higher and higher and higher and higher. And actually, that's a hierarchy. That's actually all going back this way and this way, back into number one. This is really where we're heading into. So what
Well,
happens?
and don't you have to, to ascend, to experience the higher frequencies, you do have to address the lower frequencies. It's like you have to release them to be able to move up. Is that right?
I think that's very true. I think in order to recognize a frequency that's working for you that's much higher, it's definitely going to show you where lower frequencies work differently. And that
Yes.
is very true. Your awareness changes, what you bring in changes, your access changes. And as you gain into higher frequencies, what you access as far as information and how you process it totally changes. So you're definitely going to notice a difference in your processing.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in fear versus clarity, there's a huge difference in how you're going to process something. You know,
Right.
if something drops next to you in fear, you might leap about 6 feet. What was that? Yeah, where'd it go, baby? Oh my God! But yeah, but if you're processing, you may say, "Oh, that's just a harmless bug. That's pretty cool. Yeah, no problem there." It's definitely perception is definitely going to change.
Right.
So what happens then is, you definitely start to evolve, and then as you evolve, you gain access to even more different types of frequency and processes. So when you have something, they could call this witchcraft that could sit in the shadows. You could call it anger or very huge manipulation, that
Mm-hmm.
some people could call that negative. It's not that witchcraft is wrong by no means. It's negative, anything, negative manipulation, trying to control other people's free will, trying to contain somebody, trying to capture their soul. No matter what you call it, it's not good,
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing light work and you're bringing in, higher frequencies, some may, whether you're doing it through processes of evolution, or you're doing shamanism, or you're doing Wicca, or whether you're doing um, matrix energetics or whatever, then that's definitely an ascension, and you're bringing in good things. It really does boil down to intention, and
Mm-hmm.
intention is what sits in that consciousness. But unfortunately, curses can sit in that type of consciousness, and they can gain a lot of a lot of movement and a lot of motion. So if somebody curses an ancestor back about 13 generations ago, you could wind up still living that curse 13 generations later because the next generation lives it, the next generation lives it, the next generation. And next thing you know, you've got a real problem because its consciousness is becoming even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically houses in the blood. The blood is a DNA keeper. It's a record keeper. It's very, very powerful. And it really talks a lot about our DNA and who we are. And when you change the blood, then you're changing the language you're resonating to, and you're changing what you're bringing in and what you're bringing out. So I learned pretty quickly that DNA is key, and it's a very, very powerful thing. And DNA lives in the spiritual, it lives in the esoteric, it lives in the mental, physical, ethereal bodies. DNA is a record keeper of all of them, and it's mirrored in your Akashic records.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually becomes a big part of your creation. So when that kind of thing gets carried around, it can be very interesting to get rid of if you're not aware of what's going on. So
Right.
what happens then, we have to find a way to get that object out of the light, so the light just becomes fluid. The thing that happens to the consciousness is the shadow disappears, and you can't even describe what it looked like before. It was like it was never there. And this is what I call process of neutralization. Neutralization is the true opposition, because water puts out fire, but have you ever tried to put out water with fire? You get a lot of steam. I think we tried that in a lot of relationships. So here's a little fire for that water. Things can be really interesting. So what happens is the real opposite of fire is no fire. The opposite of water is no water. Neutralization is takes out the story. So it's kind of when we identify so strongly in our stories, and then the story disappears, it's like, oh, what do I do with that? How do you almost don't know what to do. Sometimes you might reach for your story because that's what you're used to, but if it's gone, it's gone. You're going to have to create a new one. How about that?
So how does that work? Like, because when you're doing the codes, well, explain, because you're talking about number sequences. So
Yep.
what my mind wants to know is these numbers, where do they come from, and how do they shift? Like, what's the connection? How does it shift your DNA?
Huh.
And then after
So,
that, I would love for you to do like a first activation so we can, feel it.
okay, super. Well, since you asked that question, let me go into detail. So here we go. So just the last of it. So you take something out of inversion, you process it to neutralization, you go up into ascension, you bring in brand new information, and then you bring it into God's source, and it comes into your containment. So we are numbers running at all times. God is math. We are a grid. And that is, very, very interesting that we're living vibration and frequency every day. And whether it's Reiki or whatever it is we're using, it all has a longitude and latitude of frequency. So what happens is, what if the illusion is programmed in our DNA? So we have a lot of different theories about Genesis and how it was created. I pretty firmly believe that our DNA was probably manipulated by a lot of different higher beings that are probably terrestrial beings that help create us. I think that, unfortunately, we may have been created to be more of a slave race in the beginning. We have totally come out of that.
I was going to say, I know that there's a lot of people that would, because of their day-to-day life and how hard they struggle and work, they would totally agree with that.
Oh, yeah, feed the machine,
And now for a quick break. I'd like to thank Healing Ways for sponsoring this week's episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I always enjoy supporting high-integrity businesses backed by heart-centered people, and Healing Ways is one of those businesses. Healing Ways is on a mission to help alternative health practitioners and light workers to get noticed in a bigger way. If you'd like to learn how you can become part of a professional network dedicated to the field of alternative medicine and open yourself to attracting more of the clients you want, visit healingways.com and make sure to use promo code AWAKE to receive 2 months free membership. Now back to the show.
One of the things that I learned pretty quickly is that, the blood of the fathers, which is even biblical, is really huge. And, the access points are usually brought down through the different generations. Little Johnny was adopted, and his father lives all the way across the nation, but they walk alike, they talk alike, they think alike. And it's like, how can that be if little Johnny never even met his dad? Well, it's language. It is language, and that language has numerical frequency. So what kind of happened is I was noting that the people that I was working with that were like abductees, they were having a very hard time. And anyone who does healing work might note that those who've been abducted or taken up on ships or claim to have implants or had a really not so nice experience tend to feel enslaved by that experience. Many women talk about their seeds being taken and that they find out their mother's seeds were taken, this type of thing. So a lot of the DNA is programmed and worked with probably with a lot of beings, but there's also benevolent beings that are working to get our DNA at a higher frequency, and they want us to be able to evolutionize, and they want us to progress. But what had happened is I had a client, and sure enough, he'd been the victim of abduction, a highly intelligent man, and it usually seems to be very highly intelligent, very gifted people that seem to tell me that they've had these kind of experiences. So he was having a heck of a time, and we went ahead and did an activation on him. And non-activation, at that time, I was only into the cross template. I was using this template. And I was moving out all kinds of energies, and I was doing all kinds of stuff. We did a 2-hour session. This guy felt great. Thank you so much, he said. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. It's all back. And what do you mean it's all back? He says, I'm exactly the exact same place I was. Told you it wasn't going to work, and the guy was just so despondent. And I was, oh, really? So I had what they call a spiritual tantrum. I was, oh, sorry, I have to clear my throat here, of course. I actually had a fit. I came to the master like, what? You programmed us to do this, work, this wonderful healing work. We're doing all this great stuff. This guy's back to the way he was 2 weeks later. You better give me something, because this isn't flying. We have free will. And I realized that I looked at it, and a holographic body of information. Literally, it's like a program. It's like somebody went ethereal, put a whole big program out there, designed it, put all kinds of frequency, all kinds of vibration in it, and threw it into his physical body. And I knew it came from the more benevolent folks that were capturing him. And I saw it. He totally changed out. And luckily, I've had a gift where I've been able to see frequency numbers for a long time. And this 1 divided by 9 kind of thing, the gematria of the number 9. I studied gematria where like every 7th letter made a whole complete different story. I think that's actually, it may be in the Talmud, like every 7th letter was a code that totally wrote something else. I mean, so we're a series of codes. But seeing this holographic body of information jump into this guy, and he's totally held captive again, I said, that's not right. We got to do something. So I screamed and yelled and stomped around and had a fit. And they were kind of quiet, and all I heard was, they have access through free will. He's freely choosing the illusion. I said, what kind of trickery is that? You want to tell me one person that would choose that kind of thing? He goes, well, it's happening all the time. Yes. And when we talk about masters, we're talking about archangels and masters, and I work with benevolent ETs that were, they said, yeah, there's access. I said, well, you better give me something to change that access, that this isn't right. Quiet. Well, I was I was at my job, actually, I was concentrating on my work. And the eight's missing. Did you guys come by later? The eight's missing. That's the problem. Could you guys really come by later? I'm a little busy. The eight's missing. That's what has to change. Well, strange. Everybody got to go home early that afternoon. We get this email saying, hey, we're letting you guys all go early today. And everybody just literally filtered out of the office. And I'm sitting there, going, how'd you guys do that? I said, they told me to get to the calculator. So you know that 9 is it's the ultimate gematria number. It's the 9 plus 9 is 18. 1 plus 8 equals 9. 18 plus 9 equals 27. 2 plus 7 equals 9. This goes on and on. And I was finding a lot of these things with the affinity points where I caught it on internet trying to look for something else, and my eyes looked like saucers inside of saucers. It was like the radio waves. Wow, that is really cool. And I started playing with the numbers, and I found them just amazing. Mm-hmm. But I didn't realize I was getting set up to receive this activation. That's why I was so mesmerized. And, so they said, well, we need you to get on your calculator. I said, okay. So, and mind you, don't do this on your phone. Get a big calculator, because the phones round out. It might not work correctly. So I got on my calculator. They said, divide 1 by 9. I did. I said, oh, goody, I get to be in this stuff that I've really dug lately and I've been looking at. It became 0.111111111. It just went out to infinity. They said, that's your soul mapping. You are number 1. The 0.1 is your soul mapping, always ready for manifestation. Number 1. I said, super, this is great. They said, divide it by 9 again. I said, okay. So I divided it by 9, and it came up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 0, 1, 2, 3. I'm like, what the? Hey, the 8's missing. I got a big, duh. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? It just keeps looping, and there's no 8. How did that happen? I thought these were supposed to be perfect gematria sequences. He says they are. This is a mathematical perfect gematria sequence. And look it up, sure enough, I had looked it up on the internet later, and we had, oh my goodness, it just showed how the 8 was missing, and all these different formulas work with it, and I was kind of mortified. I said, oh my God, that's in our DNA. And they said, well, this is what happened. They said a faux connection, a false connection, or a false vibration was programmed between the 7 and the 9. It's like they made an imaginary 8 or a makeshift 8, but with that imaginary vibration was one that led directly to the illusion of the more benevolent outworlder type of vibration, to accept slavery, to accept a narcissistic God as the real God, to stay in fear. In other words, this is our reality that we were living because there was access. Everything could be programmed right to our soul mapping that we would bring into our experience every day. Mm-hmm. And that's why they had access, why they were able to program all this information. So I said, well, how clever is that? Well, that's a nice little dirty trick that got pulled on mankind. They said it was done on purpose. It's exactly when they worked with the DNA, they found a perfect mathematical sequence in order to get their own vibratory type of sequence to get you to serve them. Mm-hmm. And be happy as a slave race and know that this is what you're supposed to do in your life.
It seems like, that the old trend is that we would all look outside of ourselves seeking something, but really it's that going within and tapping into that God self.
Absolutely right. That's why you're the awakened goddess. You got it.
and speaking of goddesses, can we do that activation for the goddess?
Oh, we're going to do that too. I'd like to demo a couple of different ones, and we'll definitely do the activation for the goddess. So we got a real treat for the listeners, and and you male guys, well, you can be gods, okay?
That's
So,
right. That's right.
yeah,
Well, we all have the divine feminine and masculine within,
we
so
certainly
you
do.
will only get what you need. Now for a quick break. Have you created vision boards, listened to meditations, and read books on how the law of attraction works, yet you're still not where you want to be? That's why I created the Envision Experience, a revolutionary and simple 28-day process for powerful quantum level dream manifesting. Over 4 weeks, you'll get laser focused guidance, accountability, support, plus a powerful personalized movie to help you envision and embody your dreams into reality. You can find out more at theawakenedgoddess.com/envision-experience. Now back to the show.
I'm like, how do we put the 8 back in there? So I'm waiting, I'm like, I know this isn't my idea because I'm getting this information. They said, you need a mutable at 8 and 9 because they go together. Also the 6, because the 6 is a soul number, that's also immutable. So in order to put the 8 in, you have to have a mutable of those 2 numbers, and what they gave me was 72, the divine 72, the 72 names of God. It's a holy number, and 7 plus 2 equals 9, by the way. And so we had the divine 72. I said, well, how does that work? And I got me back in the calculator and said, well, what 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, actually, if you were to times it by 72, you get 0.88888, that comes out. But what they showed me is 72 divided by 9, there's your 9, equals 8. There's your 8 and 9, mutable. If you divide 8 by 72, it comes up 0.11111111. So it synchronizes with the 0.11111 you get when you just do the 1 divided by 9, and then you divide by 9 again, and you get all those 1s. So the 72 divided by 9 equals 8. 8 divided by 72 equals 0.11111. The 1 synchronized perfectly. The 8 takes its rightful place, kicks out the illusion. The 8 infiltrates, and it's in the complete looping. And the 8 is an infinity number in itself. And the 8 is also what we call divine manifestation. So our free will then comes into creating daily through free will, and not through the old programmings jumping in there, creating us. And one of the great examples of that is I had a gal, and she was phenomenal, but she had a lot of early deaths of the males in her family. And she was kind of distraught because she had brothers, she had sons herself, and she didn't know how to stop it. So we used this kind of activation to go back in there, to go back infinite number of generations. Actually, there was 53 generations of the men that had died early. That's what I found.
Oh, wow.
And lo and behold, you think that the ancestors don't show up in spirit? Oh, yes, they do. You're going to have a crowded house when you do these activations. You're going to be like, ooh, this place looks really busy. What's up with that? Because even if you reincarnate, your aspect still holds. The aspect of that personality still holds the imprint of the frequency. So guess what's going to show up? They may be alive today, but that aspect is going to show up to get its healing. It may be affecting its life. And this is the karmic wheel that we can eradicate and just live to evolutionize instead of, hey, I could kill you, you could kill me, and you could kill me, and then we could kill a group, and then they could kill us, and this could go on and on. There is no way you're not going to have karma in a life. It's actually programmed to be lived. And then when we do it, it's like, oh, we're sending you right back to relive this. So, and this is going to be one nice endless cycle so we can keep collecting energy from you guys. Well, that's got to go. So I was given the activations through the benevolent outworlders. They're the ones who brought in this system of bringing in the 8 into the activation. So the 8, the Divine 72, you're going to hear it called out in every activation I do. So when we went in, we found the actual curse that had happened. We found the gal that had actually done the curse because this gal's ancestors, one of the males killed this gal's son. And so she cursed the family that they would all have early death. So there was able to get forgiveness to help the original that actually made the curse. It freed up not only her son, but it freed up all the generations. It just totally took it out, neutralized out that curse. It just disappeared. It didn't even exist anymore. And you could see these 53 spirits that were in there. They got cleared, so it's very often that you'll see, grandfathers, grandparents, great grandfathers will come in, and they got cleared, and it stopped the cycle in her family.
Wow.
And she didn't experience these early deaths anymore. Now this can work with addiction. Sometimes it takes more than once. This can work with attitudes. It can work with abundance. It can work with relationship issues. Do you ever know the person who gets in an abusive relationship and they say, I'll never do that again, and here comes the next one?
Yes.
Same way. And then they say, oh, I met this one all the way across the world and online, and it's the same thing,
Yeah.
because, yeah, I think we could all relate to this kind of thing. So what happens, we're resonating. A language speaks to language. So when we're resonating out, we're going to attract what speaks their language. It doesn't matter if they're sitting in the Antarctic, buried, 10 feet underground. They're going to pick us up. This is
Mm-hmm.
how we interact, and this is how you get a lot of mass consciousness and how things get programmed that way. So what happens is we're turning the DNA. We may be changing it from French to English, so the language is different. It's totally different, and the resonation is different. So the first thing I'm going to do is what I call a 0-point removal rate. Now this rate I use a lot. This is what takes everything into neutralization. And you're going to hear a lot of calling out at 8s and 9s. And you're going to notice I'm going to call out without the 8, and then I'm going to put the 8 back in. So it's going to be something interesting. So,
but just another pause. If anyone is driving or operating heavy machinery, this would not be the time to do this. Make sure you are sitting or lying down
good idea.
because you might want to have some water close by. Yeah.
Yeah, you're sewing a patch on your jeans, and they just kind of keep going.
Get in a zone. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're doing neutralization rate. Now, what's cool about this neutralization rate is it runs on its own. It's like a little mini computer. And there's a bunch of these you can run in your own as healers. I do have what I call attunements, actual attunements that I do for people that they ran up in sequences of 8, 10, then I get the 15, 6, the 24, 6, the 18, 9, because I had to be able to hold that activation before I could do it for others.
Right.
And yeah, and so the attunements themselves, the activations, are a little different because people have to be able to hold the activations in order to do them. And one by one, I'm able to facilitate others being able to hold those activations so they can do this too. And I suspect that you will be able to do that yourself, at some point, and that would be wonderful. But people receiving a numerical attunement like a 44-8 or a 72-9 are actually holding the consciousness of that activation and are very, very cool. But then we have things like the 0-point removal rate, the detach from pain body rates, abundance rates, heart rate, which is at 136.1 hertz. I got numbers for all of these and special formulas using this, and these things run on their own, which is very cool because healers could use these.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use this rate to remove some things out of yourself that could be very important. So I'm going to be a bit generic here with the 0-point rate first, that I'm just removing narcissistic consciousness attached to certain things in the generation. So it could be, it could pertain to many, many different things. So I'm
Yes.
just going to use the word abuse, perhaps, So we're going to get ready, and this is a series where we work with the 8 divided by 9, which equals the 0.8888, So get relaxed, folks. Hang on. You think of the things that you really don't want in your life anymore. Maybe you've had too many abusive relationships. Maybe your abundance is getting hurt, that type of thing. Maybe you want to change certain habits in your life. Maybe they've been in your generations for quite a while. So get ready, and we're going to go 8 divided by 9 equals 0.888888888 divided by 9 equals 987654320. We're skipping the I am number 1, going into 0 point frequency now, and we are going back infinite number of generations. Infinite number of generations on your mother's side and on your father's side. Infinite number of generations now, and we are neutralizing all narcissistic consciousness attached to physical abuse, mental abuse, spiritual abuse, bringing it in, religious abuse. Going back infinite number of generations, mother and father's side, and neutralizing all narcissistic consciousness attached to the abuse of slavery consciousness. Now, divided by 8 equals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. Divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 equals 0.1111111111111111111. Integrate and activate now. How we do it? Did you feel that one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's however you wish to. I would say just let the universe work. And I think the masters just got really busy. A lot of stuff out there.
We have a lot of people watching and listening, so
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well,
if people are wondering, well, what the heck am I supposed to feel? At least from my experience, I felt calm. I felt like I dropped in more into my body. It just felt really relaxed and a little swirly.
yeah, yeah. There's
Now,
that.
yeah. What's okay? I gotta ask. What's the beep at the end? What's what is that?
Oh, the that was a
Yeah.
tongue.
And what does
I
that do?
was helping it along to integrate. I
Okay.
like to do. Yeah. Wow, I just got a twitch from that too. How funny! You're probably seeing that on the screen. Beep, 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 beep. This will be the first online Twitch.
As long
Maybe I'll
as I
do.
don't end up with a like
Yeah.
a
I'll do one of these. I mean, all the activations will occur at once. It's like Bewitched. Yeah, that's my way of activating everybody. How funny is that? Actually, yeah, no, it works a lot of ways, and it goes into the group and consciousness. And these activations are through the benevolent outworlders. I do work with a commander of a ship, and he has his own fleets. I mean, he does have the Rocky Mountain region, but he brings in many commanders with many fleets that come in, and he brought in, I know millions of different um, fleets in for these activations. These are a gift from the benevolent outworlders that really want us to grow in our consciousness, to don't want us to have to be access to the illusion. So they're out there bringing these in interdimensionally through timelines, multi timelines, past, present, and future, because all times at once. Of course, they have access to this type of technology, so they're bringing this in for your listeners and bringing in the activation. But I thought I might help it along a little bit. So
yeah.
I thought I'd do that little E type of thing. So that does help it along. But hey, if you guys want to go out there and go into star language, or you want to yodel, whatever you want to do that helps bring this kind of thing in, go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever to. A lot of us have star languages that have showed up. And so I'm feeling actually kind of a shift that's going out like this, where
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking some things are really getting eradicated in people's lives. So if something comes up in your face, um, go ahead and, run this neutralization rate again because this is something you can probably consciously get rid of now. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what it is you're accessing or what's showing up in your language, then it feels too natural to you. If suddenly something's in your face, then you might find out that that was part of the illusion, and now it doesn't know what to do with itself. You can get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
pretty. So that's kind of
Very
a
cool.
cool thing.
Yeah.
So now we did do an attunement activation for you, Angela, and I would love to hear your insights on what you think, and then we'll go do some more for your listeners.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. So after that, it was really, really powerful. I had no idea what to expect. And I was just, I'm always a willing participant, as long as I'm not physically harmed in any way. So, but yeah, it was really interesting. And I noticed that, I had that similar feelings of I definitely felt that wobbly stuff that you were talking about, because I was standing up when we did it, and
Yeah,
we did some stuff around family members, and there I noticed that there definitely was a big shift there, which was
right.
lovely. Which was lovely. I don't want to go into too much
Yeah.
detail because but yeah, it was just like you said, there was an awareness that after you did that, that the dynamic shifted so much that I could feel that disconnect where things didn't really resonate in the same way, which was super fascinating. Um, because yeah, and it was because that wasn't my experience before. It was a very highly it was a high conflict relationship that and it helped dissolve that. And then
Yay.
I also noticed that it helped, I think, regulate my hormones, my cycle. So that was interesting because like I said, I wasn't sure what to expect, and yeah, so it was very cool, very cool.
Well, that's very cool. So we could get these out there to get people more regular.
Yeah. Well, oh, and that was another thing, that I have been really working on getting the show out there, and um, I noticed that I had a different perspective on like a new program that I was putting out there.
Oh, that's
I
fabulous.
I
Yeah.
felt a lot more confident in sharing, where before I was like a little hesitant, but after the activation, I felt really confident and like not attached to the outcome of who it was right for. So that was an interesting experience.
I think that is probably the most phenomenal thing you've said, that you were able to go in without fear to embrace your contracts and your destiny. And
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think you're going to find outstanding things coming into your shows now, that things are going to move quite
Mm-hmm.
quickly. And your creativity and the creativity of your guests, is actually going to really be activated. And now that you're carrying the consciousness of the attunement, you're going to find that you are going to really help enhance the consciousness of the show and your
Mm-hmm.
guests. I mean, they're going to
Yeah.
feel that consciousness when you are talking with them, and it's going to definitely bring out the best of your shows. I know they're great already. This means they're even getting greater, and this
Mm-hmm.
is a fantastic news. I love the fact that you told me that a relationship or conflict had changed. This has been one of the main things I have been told, that certain conflicted relationships change the resonance. And isn't that amazing? I have
Mm-hmm.
found one gal was just ready to get rid of her boyfriend forever. So we cut cords and we did it. And the next day he's at her door going, I love you. I want to marry you. Like, what happened? And they're doing great. Sometimes a person will fall out. That's not good for them. But somebody brand new comes in that's completely different. You've
Mm-hmm.
attracted a totally different kind of person in your life. Sometimes a relationship with a mother or a father will totally change, or a brother, a sibling, and you get treated differently. Others have told me they will go out and they'll find themselves being treated differently. If they're um, people will smile at them more, or even be much friendlier, or they get more respect at a job, or
Mm-hmm.
conflict at a job will change. And
Well,
like you
and as you're saying that, I also had what I felt to be a significant increase in people like promoting for me, like promoting me and
uh-huh.
my show for me. And I was like, wow, where's everybody coming from?
And that's going to happen a lot more because the consciousness of you change and the
Hmm.
whole show changes. And that is what a great confirmation of these type of activations. And my best gift is I not only get to do them, I get to help others do them. So that consciousness is going to fly out there as far as we can get it. And you will definitely be using them too, which is a great honor that I can activate people like yourself and the others that are out there. What a great honor for me to be an activator for the activators.
Hmm.
And and I've seen some people just take off like rocket ships. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
And there's no ego here. We share each other's greatness. We're all a part of each other, and that's what makes it even better. And as even at the joke that he said, I became more regular in my hormones. Actually, cycles in the body do change. Cycles may come into a more evenness because there's not other consciousness templates that may be affecting them. Let's be honest, if there are feminine issues, it could affect our hormones. It could cause our hormones to get wacky.
Hmm.
In the men's cases, they may find themselves with gut issues, or, when they're trying to integrate, they're not sure how to integrate their own personal power. What does it mean? So the body can really react to the illusion and create a lot of problems. So this is a
Right.
great way to get the body to line up and even line up to receive more healing.
Hmm.
Uh, so we're going to, and by the way, I remember that tightness you got in your chest, that's not unusual. That's actually the energy moving out because others experience this too. It's like an expanding of the galactic heart. At first, I don't know what to think. Oh, let's get that stuff moved out of there. But you
Yeah.
weren't the only one. I have had many, many tell me they felt that. And what it really turned out to be was their heart was expanding. Their heart consciousness was expanding. How
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah. And I want to say that not all, that is a positive experience, but not all growth feels comfortable and easy. So
Yeah.
just because it doesn't feel comfortable does not mean we need to resist it.
Well, if you're doing this kind of activations, good luck resisting because your language is changing. It's going to happen anyway. And it might feel a little weird, but now it's going to be there. you know? And your attachment to the illusion goes, and that might be more uncomfortable. Ask
Mhm.
anyone to quit smoking. This hand to mouth thing. They got toothpicks in their mouths. They got celery hanging out of their mouths. It's like, oh my God, I'm so used to this habit. And maybe it's very good that they quit smoking, and maybe they're not even craving it anymore. But the habit of kind of a hand to mouth kind of thing may still be there. What's nice about these activations, it may help you with those kind of cravings. They may just take it right out. So,
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Shirley. This was
dude,
such a treat, such a pleasure, and it was a really powerful conversation. So thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.